My mother was a dressmaker when I was growing up, so my world has always been around fashion magazines, bolts of fabric all around our living room where she worked. So it's always been a part of my entire world. I realized that I don't want to do anything else. There's absolutely nothing else that I want to do in life other than this one thing. I think I have a point of view. I think I have, something to say. I think I feel it as much as I can think about it. It's a natural feeling. It's never forced. My mind does not stop wanting to design something ever. I can get inspired by any shape or any color, any smell very easily. And so since that natural ability to do this is within me, then I can't think of any other reasons why I want to do anything else.
Miguel Antoinne is a luxury menswear designer and successful entrepreneur. I had the opportunity to meet him back in the day when I was accepted into the Black Retail Action Group internship program at Bloomingdale's. Miguel was working tirelessly as a buyer while attending design classes at night and perfecting a business plan that would later grab the attention of a group of investors and lead to the launch of his own design house, Miguel Antoinne. Miguel's design talent is immaculate, and his tailoring techniques are admired by clients across the globe. Miguel was one of the few Black designers that I had ever met who had a brick and mortar store in Soho, hello, and a profitable online direct-to-consumer business. I mean, the guy is brilliant. He's also just an all-around amazing person who inspires me to do more yoga and also to tap into my inner zen. Check out our conversation. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
How are you? It's been ridiculously too long.
It's been way too long. Like I was trying to think last night, when was the last time that I'd actually spoken with you? And I can't come up with the date. I think at some time,
right?
Sometime to do around, I know you didn't have a child at the time.
Yeah.
How old is he?
Oh my God. So my oldest is 4 and my youngest is 2.
Okay, so it's definitely been over 4 years for sure.
Yeah, it's been wild. Yeah, I think I was in Soho getting duped, that 3D, they make the 3D figurines and you go in and they take photos of you from every angle. And I think, I was at Slate Magazine doing a podcast show. And I think that was the last time. And I was in the neighborhood and I was like, Miguel, are you here? And I don't think you were at the time. So it was before that. So it's been so long. How are you doing right now? The world is insane. How, is the store currently open? What's going on?
Yeah, so I am well. Thank you for asking. It's been a crazy year, I guess.
Yeah.
COVID didn't start until March, but it feels like this entire year has just been a mess. So no, I closed the store. When was it? This was 2018. So the store's been closed for almost a couple of years now. And we moved online, which was our original plan anyway.
Yeah.
I'm actually very thrilled to be out of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that comes along with brick and mortar. And just to have that headache sort of gone, I can only imagine how relieved you are right now for that. That is crazy. So are you in New York right now or are you in Japan somewhere? Because I know you travel quite a bit.
Summer is over. I've officially accepted that it's gone.
Yeah.
Preparing for fall. Excited about fall. It's my favorite time of year. So I think New York is really, really gorgeous in the fall. And so I'm excited to say goodbye to summer and move along and see where the rest of this year is going to end up for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love, I mean, your story is just so inspirational to me. You know, I remember just like back in the day, just chatting with you as you're building your business and, you know, just the process of, you know, getting it up and running, those late nights where you were putting your business plan together, like all of those things were just, it's just amazing to see where you are now. But I'm going to take it even further back. Like, where are you from and where did you grow up?
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. And so I sort of grew up all over Florida. You know, southern Miami, northern, which is Jacksonville. Spent some time in Orlando as well. And then from there, I mean, I spent, you know, up until I was 22 when I moved to New York to try fashion.
Wow.
So I grew, you know, I spent most of my time all over Florida. You know, we were never always in just one place. But most of the time, southern Florida, you know, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. Wow. And like, were you studying there as well? Like how, like, what was the transition from Florida to New York like?
Yeah, so I had gone to business school and I realized very quickly that I wanted to be in fashion and do something in fashion. And so I, you know, started thinking about where I should go, you know, looking at fashion design schools, you know, here as well as abroad. And, you know, there was an art design school, Institute of Art down in Miami, but I didn't feel as though that was a place that I belonged. You know, I felt like if I wanted to go learn and be a part of the best, I had to go to one of those places. And it was very easy to decide on New York. You know, I didn't want to go to Paris. You know, I didn't want to go to Italy. You know, I didn't want to be that far away from home. And so New York was just the obvious choice for me. And so I looked into FIT and into Parsons, and I just decided to do it. It was
that
really,
is wild.
From the time of, you know, thinking about where I was going to go to actually doing it, you know, I can't remember. You know, it seemed like it just happened overnight. I mean, it's like I sold everything in my apartment.
Wow.
Like I did it so fast, and I just, you know, I had what was left, and I, you know, rented a U-Haul and drove myself to New York, and yeah, that's
what?
Yeah.
Oh, I know your family was like, what is going on here? Were they supportive? Were they like saying you're crazy? Like, what were their feelings about your move?
Well, they've always thought that I was a little crazy, but always, you know, also always really supportive of, you know, my ambitions, you know, of whatever I wanted to do. So it was no surprise to them that, you know, I had made a choice to leave home to go pursue something. And they were, you know, very supportive, you know.
I love it.
Very generous. And, you know, just, you know, gave me that little pep talk, you know.
Right? Especially Black parents. They're like, how much money is in that?
And where are you going to sleep?
Basically.
You know, I didn't have an apartment when I went to New York. I didn't. You know, I had a friend that was living in New York, and I stayed in a little seedy little motel out on Long Island, and I would get on the train and go into the city every day looking for an apartment. And that took me like almost 2.5 weeks, up to a month. Because the first apartment that I had signed the lease for, I signed a week before 9/11.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I had came up to New York, was staying in a city hotel looking for an apartment, and signed the lease in the apartment. I had on the roof was in Brooklyn Park Slope. It was a beautiful view of the World Trade Center on the roof. And then I'd gone back home to Florida. And then when I came back, you know, after 9/11, it's just that view was completely different. So that was really strange.
Wow. Wow. That's intense. That is intense. And I'm sure, with everything that was going on at that time, your family, friends, everyone was probably a little concerned. Like, you just moved to the city and there's all this chaos happening in the country. Wow. That's wild. So you're in New York. You finally made it. So, did you have a job? Were you working at a restaurant? How did you make your money, and how did you actually transition into the industry?
Yeah, so I didn't have a job when I first got here. And that took a little bit of time for me to get a job. And, I also was not even accepted into FIT yet.
Wow.
I just came. I knew I needed to be here. And I felt as though in Florida, I couldn't, get things figured out, being that far away. And I'm an on the grounds type of person. So making the decision to just come without having any of these things set up, that's just part of my personality. I like to, face things, right on the ground and get things moving that way.
Yeah.
So then I took any part-time job. I worked in a hair salon. I worked in a spa. I worked wherever there was work. And I applied to, the interesting thing about FIT, when I applied to FIT, I didn't get in the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, which was
what?
It was really insane to me that I was not accepted into FIT. So I had gone down to admissions and put up a fight about it. It was unacceptable to me as to why I was not accepted into the program. Yeah. I felt as though that I had the talent and that, I belonged there. So I started taking classes anyway. You're not going to accept me into the school. I'm going to start taking classes as a non-matriculated student.
Wow.
So I did that for the first semester. And I applied again. And this time I was not taken. No.
You're like, no.
Here's a transcript, see that I'm serious.
Wow.
Without your acceptance, I'm going to go to this school. And so, of course, they accepted me into the program. And and it was a great program. I think FIT is a really good school. I think they do a really good job, and in many of the different programs that they have there. But I also learned very quickly too, while being at FIT, that, and this is probably, in my opinion, anywhere you go to study, is that it's your experience is what you make of it. And where I felt the programs were great, I also knew that I had a very big entrepreneurial mindset. And so my focus, was in getting as much out of the program as I possibly could along the lines of what my larger ambitions were. I knew that I didn't want to go and work for a company long term. I knew that, I wanted to learn both design and business. I didn't want to be pigeonholed into just one category. My mind doesn't really work that way. I'm sort of all over the place when I want to learn something or know something.
Yeah.
And so, but it was a great start, a wonderful start. So I left there. When I finished FIT, I went to work for Bloomingdale's.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was a great experience too. Because one of the great things about working for Bloomingdale's is that, as a buyer, is that, we really were empowered, to run our businesses under the structure of a larger organization.
Absolutely.
And so that, was sort of a taste of, independence and being trusted to make decisions and have opinions. And I had a great boss who was a nerd, and I was obsessed with his brain. And so, I was just really lucky in that way to really have the opportunity to go to FIT and then, go and learn, on the ground, how, it's done,
Wow.
It's really strange to think about it that now because that world has changed so much. Retail is changing so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were in Bragg, right?
Yes.
You were in the Bragg program. Shout out to JJ Thomas. We love you. So that's the Black Retail Action Group. And it's a fantastic program that helps, black, brown, I mean, basically people of color enter into various fields in retail. And both you and I are Bloomingdale's alum. So much fun. Random question. How's your calculator game? Do you still have one of those giant calculators that you would take to market? They would just start I always felt like I was doing something when I had my calculator, as a buyer. I was like, oh, I'm the real deal. Do you still have one?
Yes, I have two on my desk right now.
I love. So you're at Bloomingdale's. What department were you in?
So I started in suits and sport jackets and suits. Then I went into trousers. And then before I left Bloomingdale's, I got promoted to fine china, which I thought was like the end of my fashion career. But I'm sure,
there's some valuable lessons that you learned.
Actually, that ended up being my favorite role. One, because I had a boss that was a complete nerd, and, his brain was just really fascinating, and I learned a lot from him. Secondly, I was surprised to learn how much fashion there is in fine china, which I did not know before.
No.
I remember sitting in a Waterford meeting one day, a showroom appointment, and here comes Vera Wang walking in.
I mean, well, she's the queen of China because, everybody's weddings, all of that. Oh, my God. Wow.
She comes in and she's just funky, and she has on these really high-heeled boots and these jeans and very biker chic. And I'm like, she's selling wedding plates, and she's coming here like a badass.
I love it. I love her style. She's amazing. I'm curious, what were some of the, how did that translate to China? Was there an element, what do you think of when it comes to trends with China? Is it the color, sort of this is what's happening overall in fashion and it translates into China? What is that?
Yeah, so I think that and to my surprise as well, it's a culmination of, I think, all of it. They operate on seasonal structures just as we do in fashion. And then they have their core collections that are always available. And then you have this after sales market, because you think about it, you have your wedding china, and say your kid knocks into the cabinet and breaks 5 plates,
Yep.
You need to replace those.
I know about that life, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately, but unfortunately for my china.
You need to replace those. So that huge after sales market, and people take it very, very serious. And I guess one should. It's something that is going to be a part of your family forever, and you're making choices just as you would to buy a gown or a tuxedo. And the showroom appointments were amazing. Here we are going to, Waterford, that's doing Vera Wang, and then we're going to Rosenthal, who's doing Versace. And, so it was just a whole new world that I had never, been a part of before, because I'm always interested in learning new things. After I got over and learning very quickly that it wasn't the end of my fashion career and that it was going to be an exciting opportunity, I actually enjoyed being there very much. And there's the whole gifting aspect of it, and baby, and it's just a whole other world that, and that's the great thing about fashion. The reach of fashion itself is just really remarkable. And all these different, ways in which it touches people's lives and influences people's lives. And, that was just another experience, me being able to witness that.
Amazing. And how did you transition from Bloomingdale's into doing your own fashion line and building your own business?
Yeah. So
you're like, remember the secret? We were tapping into the secret. I remember.
Very true. Very, very true. So I can say this now. I started, I think I started the company long before I even remember starting it. I've always had these ideas on paper, always hashing out a business plan. The first plan I wrote myself. I took the time and I wrote it myself, and I actually still have it. I still share it with people. It's really interesting how accurate a lot of the predictions were in that plan.
Wow.
I'm very, very proud of that very bold person that I was back then. But no, so I think that, it came a time to where, it really started setting in my mind that I needed to go back to what my original plan was, that I wanted to work for myself. And I just started, positioning myself to think about that and to figure out how just want to do that. How am I going to do that? I'm in this crazy expensive city. I have a safe job that pays my bills. Where are you going to get the money to do this thing?
Yeah.
How are you going to get the money to do this thing? And, what does that look like? And you've never done it before. And you're in New York City and it's expensive. And, all these things running through your head. But I was pretty fearless back then, and not that I'm not now, but I do, recognize the guts that Miguel had, and I think that as we get older, we tend to try to be a little bit more practical and make sense of things in a more reasonable, responsible way. Not that I was irresponsible then. He was just brave. So I started the company, I needed money and I didn't know how to get money to do it. I didn't have any, products. All I had was sketches and ideas, and that really does not translate well in the real world.
Nope.
So wait, you want me to give you money, but you don't have your product.
Oh man.
But so I started figuring that out. I had the responsibility of my job, my day job, which I liked. And so one of my really good friends who I went to FIT with, I hired her. She was finishing up her last year at FIT. Wow. And she wanted she was looking for a part-time job, ways to make money to pay for school. So I hired her, not a lot of money because I didn't have a lot of money. I had a day job. Wow. But I hired her for what I could. And what she did for me was she went around and she researched the garment district. I assigned her, a list of factories to go visit, some questions to ask them. You may know Nikki Baez, actually.
Oh my, hello. Yes. Hey, Nikki. Love her. Yes, of course.
Yes. So Nikki Baez is actually the first person who worked for me, and temporary part-time capacity. And she went around to the garment district and she found my first factories for me.
Wow.
And actually the factory that she found for me, I ended up being very, very good friends with the owner. And, he and his wife really helped me along the way to get my company started. So Nikki did that. I had, hired other students, just to do a little research for me. I couldn't do it during the daytime. I didn't have time to, leave the office to go meet with, people in the garment district. Yeah. And then there came a time where, I started looking for money and I could not find money anywhere. I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to do this thing anyway. I'm going to figure out how to do it. And if I go broke, whatever, I can go get another job.
Yeah.
And so I just started, stopped shopping for myself and started, putting resources, very little because I didn't have any money, into making clothes so that I could show people clothes instead of showing people sketches. The sketches, that really doesn't resonate, to people outside of the fashion world. It's like, well, what does that thing feel like? What is the fabrication made of? So I started doing that. And, when I stayed at Bloomingdale, it was up until the point to where my phone started ringing too much during the daytime, meaning that all the wheels that I had started putting into play was getting my phone ringing. And also I had to make calls as well, that I had to make decisions that Nikki couldn't make or, anyone else. I had to be there. And then I went to my boss's boss, because he had assigned me this really big project at Bloomingdale's. And I told him that I was ready to go. And he said, well, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to do my own thing.
I'm like, what?
And, yeah.
Come again?
Yeah. And so then I got a call from the GM, Frank.
Oh, Frank.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if Frank is still there. Probably. Such a big wig.
So he's like, why are you leaving? I was like, I was lucky to have those teachers at Bloomingdale's because I was only as good as I was there because of them. They were really, really remarkable in that way.
Brilliant people.
When he said to me, I know you're going to do great. And he says, if you want to do it, this is the time to do it. You got to do it. And I was like, okay.
What year was that?
What year was this? So I started the company in 2008. So this must have been 2007-ish.
Right before the economic downturn.
Yeah. So that was, yes. So when people ask now, like, how are you doing with COVID? I'm like, look, I survived the housing crisis in 2008.
Okay.
I survived that. And COVID, if it doesn't kill me.
Right. Oh my God.
Yeah, I can get through this. But yeah, no, that was a really tough time because you are starting a business with very limited resources. And then you in an industry that it is hardly hit by these types of downturns as we experience it now with COVID. But yeah, it was a really, again, at the time, there was no way that I was not going to do it. Just my mind just was in that zone to say, you're going to do this and you're going to do it well. And yeah.
Wow. And I mean, clearly it worked. You're still in business. When you first started, I mean, I remember you also had women's wear. So you were doing menswear and women's wear. So first of all, when it comes to the brand, how would you describe the person, the man that wears your brand? And then why did you sort of focus on menswear over doing both women's wear and menswear?
Yeah. So, the guy, he really is an extension of me. Everything in the collections is what I want in my closet. If I don't want to wear it myself, it doesn't end up in the collections whatsoever. And, I have always been a guy that liked tailoring, and meticulous attention to detail and, pretty much anything that I buy or that I have in my house, just always looking for that uniqueness and thoughtfulness in design. And that's pretty much as a philosophy as what we do. We're not trying to be, on trend with anything. Not very logo driven. This is not a guy who is interested in wearing what everyone else is wearing on the street. He has his own sense of identity, very discerning in his taste, appreciates, great fabrications, functionality, and things that he'll, want to pull out of his closet for years to come. You think about, our price points, for, some of our garments. He isn't the type of guy that's, buying a jacket and then that's the end of it. He wants to be able to wear a jacket for years to come. And that's the way that we design. That's the way we select our textiles. That's the way we design our textiles, for that longevity. These are investment pieces. It's not something that's in today and out tomorrow. So, and I just think that's pretty much a part of his world and, the way he, not only the way he dresses, but, where he chooses to spend his time or, types of food he eats or how he gets his hair cut, all these different things, that he, utilizes to design his life and his identity. And so we try to, be a part of that in the way in which we create the collections.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Why did you stop women's wear? I still have my wool and leather jacket that I'm obsessed with. I still held on to it. Even when I got pregnant, I said, I'm going to get back into this jacket, dagnabbit.
I remember that now. Yes, actually, I do remember. You actually, if I remember, you bought it online. You were one of the first to shop online.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it really was. I had so much fun during the women's collections. But it was during the time that I had opened the store. And while it was a large space, you've been there, it was very difficult to share the space with both men's and women's to tell a story.
Wow.
No matter how much we tried to curate the space to separate the two worlds, and not necessarily separate them as far as like them being,
right,
different, but men shopping in the women's department, it was complicated. And so I just made the decision that we had to choose. I felt as though we're not, servicing the women's wear collections as best as we could. And I also thought we were doing a disservice to the men's collections because we were limited in our capacity to be able to display the breadth of the collections because we had to share the floor space there. And then also it was, a splitting of resources.
Yeah.
Which was really difficult as well. So the time came to make the decision, and I just made it very, very quickly. And I didn't really look back on it because I just knew that it was the right thing to do. I enjoyed designing the women's collections very, very much,
I love it.
Everything that I couldn't do in menswear, I could express in women's wear, and that was really, really great. But it became very interesting too, because after we, stopped selling or designing the women's collections, women still bought our leather jackets in an extra small.
Oh, absolutely. So, absolutely. I mean, I keep my eye open because, I'm like, okay, like, is this going to hit my chest, in the right way? But like your leathers, the tailoring, I'm like, wait, I think I could wear this. Yeah. So any excuse I can find. And what's so interesting, whenever I talk to any of my colleagues in the industry or just people who love fashion, I'm like, oh, you should check out Miguel Antoinne. And one thing that consistently comes up, they're like, oh my God, he has the best leathers. Like people are just like, Miguel, his leather. Oh my goodness. So how do you source, these materials? Like, what is your process like? I know you travel quite a bit. Like, is that a part of the process? Like, where do you find this?
Yeah, so that was one of the things I learned very early on when I started the company, was that it was difficult to find, the higher quality fabrications in America, that we are not the producers of that anymore. Or haven't been for a long time. So I, just like with FIT, if that's the best place to learn, one of the best places to learn design, that's where I need to be. So I, put that same question in my head again, who and where are the places that are making the best textiles? Like, where are the luxury groups getting those supple, butter soft leathers? Where do the best wools come from? Where do the best cottons come from? And just doing that research and figuring out where those places were and going there, And that was also, it's really remarkable of that Miguel, who had the courage to do that as well. I would just get on a plane and just go to Paris and not know how to speak French, but I'm going to find the best fabrics in the world. So I started doing that, and most of our fabrics could still to this day come from either Paris, France, Italy, or Japan. So you get the really luxurious fabrics out of Europe, and then, those more technically advanced, but also equally luxurious textiles coming out of Japan, fabrics that do things, fabrics that wick moisture, fabrics that, are inclined to not peel, last 200 years, all these innovations coming out of these different places. And then Turkey, where, in my opinion, some of the best leathers in the world come from, and not many people really speak on that. But for sure, some of the best leathers in the entire world come from Turkey.
Amazing! I didn't know that.
And so along with that, we just said our quality standard is very, very high. And so, we decline, a great percentage of, textiles that are, sent to us because we just separate, the best from, what's ordinary. And so, and we're very particular about that. In the trims and the buttons and everything, just the best makers in the world.
I love that. And I will never forget when we last saw each other, you were just talking about how amazing Japan is in terms of finding out what's next in menswear, just how advanced, their society is as it relates to menswear. Is that still a place where you go for inspiration?
Yeah, I'm still very, very inspired by Japan. My first time there, I was just blown away. And I wasn't there long enough because I had split the trip between Japan and Hong Kong for the first trip. But I knew I had to go back because you just can't cover Japan in a week. you just cannot do it, particularly for the interest that we had as far as, really introducing ourselves to the fashion world there. What was most intriguing to me was, you think here in America, we have men's departments inside of, boutiques or department stores. And they're usually an afterthought. They're usually, in the lower level.
Yeah.
Much smaller than, or on a higher level, you have to get to them. You can't just walk in and they're there. There's not much square footage dedicated towards them.
Yeah.
What was fascinating about Tokyo is that you go to, let's say, neighborhoods the size of Soho that are all menswear.
What?
That are all dedicated to menswear. And then think about it. And then you have those types of neighborhoods spread all over the town, and I was like, wow, how are we going to ever be able to cover, this amount of men's fashion in one trip? And you just can't. But
there's no way.
Fascinating to me. You think of Bloomingdale's in New York or Harrods in London. There's a store in Tokyo, Isetan, about the size of, two Takashimayas or one large Bloomingdale's, all, streetwear, menswear, luxury designer, dedicated to men, just really, really, really remarkable. And the sense of style on the street is just, your neck will hurt by the end of the day as much as you turn looking.
Oh, that sounds like a dream. I love people watching.
Yeah. And this was pre-social. So this was pre-Instagram.
What?
Facebook was really just, not really a big thing at the time. Not in the way that we use it now in fashion. So here it is. There in Tokyo for the first time, no social, just absorbing it all, not distracted by anything.
Podcasts are awesome. And I know you love them too, or you wouldn't be here right now. But have you ever thought about starting your own? Don't worry, you don't have to be a techie, but you do need a bit of guidance so you don't make costly mistakes. My name is Sunny, and I've been podcasting for a long time. I've launched more than 15 profitable podcasts, and I'm the founder of the Independent Podcast Network. My online course, How to Launch Your Profitable Podcast in 30 Days, gives you the keys to the 5 Ps of podcasting, which is everything you need to launch and grow a successful podcast. You get unlimited access to more than 35 videos and dozens of handouts. And when you purchase my course, you're also supporting this awesome podcast because they're getting 50% of the money when you use their special link. How cool is that? Let me help you get started with your podcast. Go to podcastareawesome.com/fashion. That's podcastareawesome.com/fashion.
That sounds like a dream. On my list, going to Tokyo just to people watch for 5 days. Amazing. So, you have this amazing line. You're building your business. One thing that I love about your Instagram, you guys should follow him. It's pretty fantastic. It seems like you're always doing yoga, health and wellness is very important to you. What is your routine like? How do you stay mentally balanced? What are you doing?
I don't know if I'm mentally balanced.
I'm he's all you're always do it, I came back from yoga and I'm oh man, I need to get up on it. He's so centered.
So yoga was something that I started when I first moved to New York. I was working at a spa, and so being a part of that world, of wellness and fitness and taking care of yourself and pampering yourself, yoga was something I was introduced to, and I fell in love with it immediately. And I find even now that if a week goes by that I don't do yoga, then I do get in that space where I am off balance, because what it does for me, particularly, I practice Bikram yoga, which is a hot yoga. And I mean, it's really, really, really hot. And honestly, it's the most difficult thing that I do physically. And that exercise has conditioned me to be a lot calmer. Things don't, unravel me at all. I have a lot of responsibility, running a company, being a designer, life itself, those responsibilities. And so this one thing that I found that helps me do all the things that I have to do is probably just, there's not really any how do you say it? Reason other than it feels good to me. And it makes me be better at what I do. It makes me show up better. And so I think it's something that I'll do for life.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Love that. And, you've been in the business for quite some time and you've been very successful. There's so many folks in New York and around the world who want to become a designer and have these dreams. Do you, just from your journey, what would you tell them, just in terms of the lessons that you have personally learned going through this? What would you tell them, the people who are interested in doing this?
Yeah, I think that one of the first things I would say is to really know why you're doing it. Really know why you're choosing this. And what I mean by this is choosing a career as a fashion designer, and particularly as a fashion designer entrepreneur. You really want to know why you're doing it. And it's okay if you don't know, but I would highly recommend you discover why you're doing it before you do it. And I say this to say that it's very difficult being an entrepreneur, not only in the work itself, but just in, what it takes out of you. You give so much to this thing that's bigger than you, because you have people working, and collaborating with you as a team, and you give so much of yourself to this thing that you want to utilize to help build everyone, on the team up from. And that takes a lot of putting yourself second. It takes a lot of, there's just a lot of uncertainty, and the pressure and the weight of those responsibilities, you won't always be up to the challenge of fighting for them.
Yeah.
Right? Because
you're human.
Yes. But if you know why you're doing this thing that you've chosen, then you can always circle back to that as a compass. And I found I didn't know, why I had chosen this. I just knew I've always loved fashion my entire life, but I didn't know why for a while, why I chose to do it as an entrepreneur, or why I chose to design clothing, or instead of going to be some other type of entrepreneur. And now that I know that, and now that it's ingrained into why we do this thing, then I can always come back to that when those days are good.
Wow.
Most days are good. Most days are pretty good. But then there are stretches of time, where you have to deal with things like right now. How are we dealing with COVID?
Yeah.
How did we deal with the housing crisis in 2008? There are even simple things like your fabrication is stuck in customs. How do you deal with that? And these
oh,
are
yeah. Customs. Chinese New Year for some people. Yeah.
How do you deal with these things? And
wow.
So,
well, Miguel, I'm going to have to ask you.
Sure.
Because you mentioned just as you were speaking, talking about your why and knowing that you always loved fashion, but, you weren't sure why, but then you discovered it. What is your why, and when did you discover your why?
Yeah. So, my mother was a dressmaker when I was growing up. So my world has always been, around fashion magazines, bolts of fabric all around our living room, where she worked. So it's always been a part of my entire world. I realized that I don't want to do anything else.
Wow.
There's absolutely nothing else that I want to do in life other than this one thing. I think I have a point of view. I think I have, something to say. I think I feel it, I feel it as much as I can think about it. It's a natural feeling. It's never forced. My mind does not stop wanting to design something ever. I can be inspired by any shape or any color, any smell, very easily. And so since it's that natural ability to do this is within me, then I can't think of any other reasons why I want to do anything else.
I love it. And this show is called A Fashion Moment. So what I love to ask people towards the end is, what is your favorite fashion moment of all time? It could be personal or professional or both, but it could be something when you're a child, it could be something in your adult life, just a moment that was really magical for you.
Wow. I think.
You're like Vera Wang walking into the meeting, girl. I just told you.
Yeah. It's a world of, I like to say a grueling world of excitement.
Right.
But so there are so many moments. If I have to just choose just one, I think it was probably the day that this is going to sound very strange.
Oh, totally. No judgment on this show. We've heard all kinds of things.
It was very difficult for me to get used to seeing my name on the clothing. Very difficult for a long time. It was just a weird feeling to see my name, on the label on the clothing. And it took some time for me to get used to that. I think the day that the sign was being installed on my boutique in Soho.
Wow.
I think that day would probably be my fashion moment, because when the sign went up, that feeling, that insecure feeling that I had about seeing my name on the label wasn't there. And I felt like I had earned the right to be there. And so I would probably say that was my fashion moment.
You've more than earned that, that moment. And, just honestly, it gave me so much joy, whether you were there or not. Even when I just passed by, I'm like, that's Miguel's store in Soho. I'm like, how many Black designers do you know who are actually here? So just whether I see your name in my blazer, my jacket, or if I see it on your website in Soho, anywhere, I am thrilled to see it because you are phenomenal. And I will continue you guys should definitely follow his work, check out his website. It's miguelantoinne.com. Follow him on Instagram. Are you on Twitter?
I have a Twitter page, but I haven't figured out yet.
No worries. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. You're absolutely fantastic. I always feel so inspired after talking with you literally about anything. So I appreciate it so much. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me for this week of A Fashion Moment. If you like what you hear, we'd love for you to join our community of listeners and spread the word about the show. We also want to hear from you. Share your favorite fashion moments and dream guests with us by sending an audio clip or email to afashionmomentpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can tag us on Instagram at A Fashion Moment, and you could be featured on next week's episode. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and let us know what you think. Until then, see you next time for another fashion moment. Podcast production by Rebecca Rashid and John Taylor Williams. Digital media production by Megan Porras.
This recording carries a Creative Commons 4.0 international license. Thanks to Patrick Patricios for their song, Hot Coffee.